Hello, friends. Good morning to you. Good morning. Hey, John, good morning to you. Glad you're here. Hope things are doing well up there. Hope everybody's doing all right. It's been a good week. Good morning, Karen. Welcome back. It is good to be back. It feels good. Cecile, good morning to you. Welcome back. Yes, thank you. It is lovely to be and a joy to be back in this place. And, uh, and it is lovely to be with all of you. That it is not simply a matter of place, but it is a matter of community. A joy that we might be together and enjoy one another's presence and time, such as it is in this little digital space, but it is still a joy and a goodness. So I am so glad to be back. Good morning. All right. Let's get going this morning. It is the 13th day of October. It's the middle of October. It seems like it's the middle of the month almost every time we turn around, that the days just flow by so quick. And I am grateful that you are here with us on 11:11 and this time that we have to spend together. I actually had a surprise set up that I really wanted to have an 11:11 with all of the four folks that I was away visiting, that all four of us might gather and be together. But alas, I couldn't make it all work with people's travel schedules and time and events we were already planned into. And it was a busy time. We went out for a celebration of ministry at my friend Robin's church out in Suttons Bay, Michigan. And I'm so grateful for the hospitality of the Suttons Bay Congregational Church and all of the glorious people out there, and the folks at Rockland Congregational Church and the folks at Salem Congregational Church, loaning their pastors out to come to that celebration, in Seth and Jeremy, my dear friends, that we might all gather and be in one space, as we have been ignominiously named the four horsemen of the apocalypse. But, let's say that's a good thing, because so it's a joy to be back with you and to continue our little journey together, and the parts of life that we share together. I don't know if you noticed, or you probably noticed yet, but behind me is a new piece of art. I've been looking at this for quite some time. It is a relief. It's a really interesting piece. I'm not a guy who generally pays for art. That's not my. That's not. I'm not kind of. It's just kind of the nature of things that's not necessarily always something I do. Though I have a few pieces. Um, but this one really struck me, and I've looked at it for a month. I went back three times to the place and finally decided that I would pick it up. It's an antique relief. You can probably see, of a knight. I also have other knights here in my office as well, in terms of, because it's become my belief that I think we are not in a dissimilar age to the age of knighthood and the age of well, chivalry, if you will. That because the age of chivalry, the age of knighthood, and the age of what we understand about that was a reaction to the world that was being created and being pressed on all sides. There was the Moorish invasion that came up through um, Spain. There was the invasion of the Holy Land and the loss of Constantinople in the Middle Ages. So there were on all these sides there were defenders that needed to come if Christendom was going to continue, and it was the knight that rose to these occasions. Now we can talk about whether we like violence or any of that kind of stuff, but that's not really what I want to talk about today. That and I think that, but I really think holding ourselves as those who would fight for our faith, and not necessarily knuckle and brawl or break whack anybody in the head with a sword, but to simply say, here I stand, I can do no other, in the good words of Brother Luther. That to make a declaration for that which we believe, and that which we believe in the order of things. One of the great modern proponents of this was C.S. Lewis. Lewis lived in the middle of the last century, probably one of the greatest Christian apologists that we certainly know about in modernity. I keep thinking he's underrated, and then I discover some more stuff about him, and I was like, nope, he really is that good. But it was said in Lewis's biography that, or his obituary rather, from the Cambridge Review, the writer wrote this: "It is Chaucer's knight who comes most often to mind when one remembers C.S. Lewis. He was a chivalric figure, and his imagination ran most richly in the forms of chivalry and adventure." One of the things that we think about when we think about Lewis is we think about the fact that he was an incredible ability to articulate the things of spirit and to articulate these things that of depth and weight and meaning that have gone across ages and across generations and speak as loudly today as they do when he wrote them. But what we forget is his early life is that Lewis was he lived during two of the greatest wars that were ever fought, the First World War and the Second World War. He fought in the First World War, and he volunteered. As an Irishman, he couldn't be conscripted. He volunteered in June of 1917 to go to war. This is June of 1917. There were people who were volunteering in 1914 because they had kind of no idea what they were getting themselves into. What a bloodbath and what a meat grinder the First World War would turn into, and its trench warfare and all of the incumbent things that would come from it. But by 17, everybody knew the telegrams of the dead, the maimed bodies of those who had come back wounded, the pains and the wounds of a nation, the losses and the brutality. It was all well documented at that point, even though there was efforts to kind of conceal it from the public. But in 1917, he volunteers. He is conscripted. He can't be conscripted, so he volunteers. He fights for nearly a year, little less than a year, until he is wounded. And upon being wounded, he ends up spending nearly 6 months in a hospital, recovering from his wounds. It kills his soul in a way. 10 years, he becomes really a rabid atheist, believing that there could be no God in the midst of the charnel brutality he had participated in and that he had borne witness to. And it is really only by the continued journeying of a friend, a fellow professor of his, J.R.R. Tolkien, that he would actually be led and come to faith in a deepening way. And he and Tolkien would be good friends and great friends. And you don't get the Lord of the Rings without J.R.R. Tolkien. You don't get so much of the beauty of the Narnia series without Lewis. But why do these so serious men spend so much time on imaginative things, on this, and all of them, including these chivalric ideas, or these nightly pursuits, whether they are the nightly pursuits that you find in Narnia, or that Tolkien illustrates in The Lord of the Rings. It is, these men are drawn not just because they are medievalists, and not just because they are, but what they understand is that 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 the response to the world, the response to a world that is becoming frayed at the edges, the response to the world where the edges are kind of inhabiting the center, and where a world that is becoming inverted and becoming crazy, a world with incredible pain and brutality in it, that actually the proper response is to place oneself in the order of things. And that by placing oneself in the order of things, that actually becomes a real pursuit, not just in imagination, but in the story itself. And so they tell stories that they may place themselves in story themselves. Lewis would write this. He'd say, "The knight is a man of blood and iron, a man familiar with the sight of smashed faces and ragged stumps of lopped off limbs. He is also demure, almost a maiden-like, a guest in hall, a gentle, modest, unobtrusive man. He is not a compromise or happy mean between ferocity and meekness. He is fierce to the nth and meek to the nth degree." Friends, I think our time is in this time that we find ourselves is this invitation to be both fierce and meek. That we often hear, the meek shall inherit the earth as a part of the Beatitudes, but the problem is that's not quite translated as we understand it. That a real proper understanding of meekness is actually this notion that a person who is meek is actually a person that is described this way as a person who wears a sword, who could unsheath the sword, but chooses not to. There must first be the capacity for resistance. There must first be the capacity even for violence. There must first be the capacity to hold against that which would subsume you. And that in that holding, to not lash out, to not become brutal, but to simply respond in the protection of all that is good and right and true. When Lewis talks of his pursuits around his medieval writing and his fantastical writings, he talks of it this way. He says, "Since it is likely that children will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. Otherwise, you are making their destiny not brighter, but darker." I think we find this in the Gospels. And all of this is leading up to, I think, this gospel story. There are two places in the Gospels, only two, where Jesus is surprised. One, he is surprised in a negative fashion. That's when he goes home, when he goes to Nazareth, and nobody recognizes the power of who he actually is. And he says he was amazed by the lack of their faith. The second time he is surprised is his encounter with the centurion. Now, the centurion is the proto knight, would become in the medieval era. The proto knight is really the centurion, the one who has authority, and who a centurion is in charge of 100 men. So they are leaders of soldiers. They're actually also the oppressors themselves of the Jewish people. And yet hear the story about what Jesus has to say about his encounter with the centurion. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. The Lord said, "Lord," he said, "my servant lies home, paralyzed, suffering terribly." And Jesus said, "Shall I come and heal him?" The centurion replied, "Lord, I do not deserve to have you under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. For I am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. And I tell that one, come, and he comes. And I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." And when Jesus heard this, he was amazed. And he said to those following him, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and take their place in the feast of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, and there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, let it be done just as you believed it would." And his servant was healed in that moment. Jesus is surprised by the centurion, the man whose job it is to oppress the people of Israel, the man whose job it is because he comes in this place with the understanding that he is a subject, an authority among authorities, and that he places himself in proper relationship to those authorities. He sees Christ as the King of Kings, and he understands that even though he's a part of the machine, he's the man, however you want to understand it, he first understands that the divine authority that comes from God comes down through the creation down to its very basis and smallest being. That every blade of grass, as the Talmud says, has an angel that whispers behind it, that whispers, "Grow." That the heights of the closeness and the heights of authority near God and the baseness of the world and the corruption of it that flows all the way down through the basis of humanity even. This Sunday, we have our Animal Appreciation Sunday. It is the blessing of the animals. We'll bring every little critter we can find into the sanctuary and bless them. If my rule is, if it will fit through the door, I will bless it. And we have had camels in that sanctuary. So if you have a large animal, bring it. It'd be wonderful to be a part of that celebration on Sunday. But we do that because we understand that all of creation has within it the authorities. And that those authorities, beginning with the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, Christ himself, that flows down through the heavens and through the angels and through those who've gone before us and those whom stand over us now and those of wisdom and grace and those who came before us. I had the chance to spend time with a guy by the name of Dick Grout. If you haven't seen the post on the page, Dick Grout's an amazing guy. He went ashore in the first wave of D-Day, ended up getting wounded at the Battle of the Bulge. He just turned 101 years old, and he's going to go jump out of an airplane as a fundraiser for the Rotary. And when doing so, he raised $15,000 for the healing of the world at 101 years old. Dick Grout's an amazing guy. It was an honor to sit in his presence. But he read scripture about the creation of the world in the 98th Psalm. Friends, us understanding it, whether you kind of own your nightly office, however you want to understand that's a way for me to understand that which I am called to. But what it is, if you want to surprise Jesus himself, it is submit yourself to the authority of the world as it is, not the world, But the world as it is, the world as it is the world of logos, that which is really real, that which is beyond time and space, that which matters, those things that mattered 1,000 years ago that matter still today. And the king of it all is Christ Jesus, and that from God's love for all of creation through the grand matrix and ministry and the orders of the angels and all that and the machinations of the Spirit and all that will unfold in our lives, we find ourselves in this place where we can pick up the nobility of our own days, that we can pick up the grace that God has given us in the place that God has given us, that we may rise to the nobility and the heights and the power against the very powers and the principalities that would array against those things, that would seek to turn upside down the kingdom of heaven. Friends, my hope for you is, if you have an animal, come and bless it on Sunday. But my hope for you is that you see your role as knight and martyr in this world. We are so in need. We are so in need of those who will carry the goodness and the grace of the world into the world, and not be scared of its violence, but not be scared of its oppression, not be scared of the mean tweets that will follow us by virtue of whatever that may come, but that we will stand bold and good and true against the forces that would array against us, knowing that we are people under authority, and that authority is not the cops or the ban police or the cancel culture or the whims of a MAGA land. It is the kingship of Christ that bids us stand and hold for all that is good and right and true in this world. And that is pretty amazing. All right, friends, it's so good to be back with you. It's such a joy. I hope you have a blessed and wonderful day, and we'll pick it up next week on Tuesday with another 11:11. Peace and grace, my friends. I hope you come by on Sunday. Pony rides, if you have a little one, and a petting zoo. Who doesn't want to play with baby goats and baby bunnies? Come on, it's a good time. Come on down. Share it with a friend that might have a little one that would love to have some time and place, or come and be a part of it yourself. Peace and grace, my friends, and we'll pick it up Tuesday with another 11:11.